The last thing in Chapter 5 is going to look at a case where we get deadweight loss from government action, and that would be price controls. Two different kinds of price controls. One is a price ceiling. This is a maximum legal price. An example of that would be rent control. This is a case where politically the consumers are the ones who might go to government and complain about the current price being too high. And so they would want some kind of a program to bring the price down. And that's what a rent control program is. It's designed to bring the rent you pay below the equilibrium amount. And what that does in markets, if it's binding, and binding means it has to be below equilibrium. If it's above equilibrium, it's not going to do anything right now. So binding means it actually has an impact on the market. And what that does is going to decrease quantity supplied and increase quantity demanded. It's going to give us a shortage. It's going to create allocation problems and increase search cost, and it's going to give us a deadweight loss, because now we're going to be producing less than the optimal. So how does this work? Well, for equilibrium, we would be here. Call this equilibrium price, equilibrium rent, and equilibrium quantity. Now, if you have a price ceiling, it's going to be imposed down here to have an effect on the market, to be binding. And I'll put PC there with the little c meaning ceiling. This is with good intentions. The politicians want to help the renters, but it has unintended consequences which are quite devastating. So first of all, what that does, if you drop the price down, it's going to be have an impact on the market through the laws of supply and demand. Government can pass these laws, but they cannot get rid of the laws of supply and demand. So what that does is that it's going to cause, first of all, the quantity demanded to go up right there. As consumers enter this market, they're all excited. Maybe as the rent control program is imposed in Rancho Cucamonga, it'll bring the rents for maybe a two-bedroom apartment down to maybe $800. Sounds nice, doesn't it? It's going to have a bad impact on the market right here, because that's going to destroy apartments. You're going to have a decrease in quantity supplied. May not happen overnight, but month by month, year by year, you're going to find that apartments would be torn down and they would be replaced by condominiums, homes, shopping. But no one is going to put money into apartments if they have a rent that's so low they can't even cover their cost of production. So here's a quantity supplied right there. And this gives us a shortage. And unlike our shortages before that we saw in earlier chapters, this shortage is not going to go away because the price can't go back up. The law says you cannot rent an apartment above that amount right there. So what that does is that it generates less apartments. The increased quantity demanded has cost on their own. That's what we call search cost. Search cost is the amount of time it takes to find an apartment. That's going to go up as more people come into Rancho and look for apartments. If there's a vacancy, 1,000 people might show up if the rent is $800, and so you have more people coming in to try to find apartments. But the real damage is on the left side. That's a decrease in apartments, and that's going to create the deadweight loss right here. So we used to have all these nice apartments that people were renting, and they were receiving a social surplus. But now the social surplus is gone, at least between QE and QS. So the top part is a deadweight loss that comes from consumers. This used to be social surplus going to consumers who can rent apartments. Now, because we have less apartments being rented, less tenants, the ones who can't find apartments who would normally have an apartment without the price control, rent control, they're out of luck, and that's their loss. And then we also have a loss from the producers, because the landlords have lost money and they've decreased or the amount of apartments being rented, and so they're out of luck right now as well. And so together, those two things creates a deadweight loss. We used to maximize social surplus right here with this large triangle, but now it's fallen short. These two pieces are gone, so now our social surplus is this truncated shape. We go to that point, down to there, over to here, and so this amount we keep. This amount is gone. There is a welfare transfer now that the price ceilings imposed. So the producer's surplus used to be everything below equilibrium above the supply line. Now it's just going to be down here. And this rectangle here, which used to go to the producers, the owners of apartment complexes, that's going to be gone now. And now the consumer is going to take over this part right here. Let me get a different color. So this part right here has been transferred from the landlords, apartment owners, to the tenants. Not all the tenants, just the lucky ones who find an apartment. And then the top part they hold on to. This is what they had initially. So what happens is that there are some winners in this game here, call it a game, and that is the tenants who are lucky enough to find apartments at the ceiling amount. And this will be transferred from the landlords, the apartment owners, to the tenants. And the tenants who are going to get the apartments are going to be the ones who were not really, what the program was not really designed for. Typically, rent control is designed for low-income tenants, people with limited incomes, maybe single parents with kids. They're not likely to get these apartments. Now the landlord can pick and choose, and so if, say, 1,000 people show up for an apartment, and I only can pay $800 or charge them $800, I'm going to pick the person that has the least problems, the one that has the most income, the best credit history. And so the single parent with a minimum wage job is not going to get the apartment. It's going to go to, say, a corporate lawyer who's not going to cause problems and is going to guarantee my rent payment each month. So unlike unintended consequences, but a very bad program, it's lose-lose for almost everyone except for the lucky few tenants who don't need the rent control. They can easily afford the market rent. A better program to design this might be not mess with the price system, but maybe if you have a problem with low-income people not being able to afford apartments, then subsidize them. Provide some kind of a subsidy. Maybe if they get an apartment, the government can give them a voucher for, say, 20% of the rent. And the tenant hands over the voucher when they pay their rent, and then the landlord can receive that voucher or redeem the money from the government with that voucher. That way you're not messing with the laws of supply and demand. You're not having our prices artificially be driven down, which creates this huge deadweight loss problem. The other problem is a price fourth. And I guess I'm getting close to maybe 10 minutes, so I'll stop there and I'll break this down into two parts.